I'll point you to a study that I just read, maybe you've seen it, by Sean Reardon et al. And it was a study that it looked longitudinally at 4 high schools in California, and it was looking at the relationship between first-time failures or among students who are just shy of passing your state exam. You call it the KC exam. They were just shy of passing the KC exam, and the extent to which that connected to these other outcomes, that is high school course taking, achievement, persistence, or graduation. So the idea was, if you can, like focus in on this group, and if you find that kids have just come shy of passing an exam, then they're going to be motivated, according to the myths about high stakes testing, to do all of these things, to persist in school, to graduate, to achieve highly, etc. And what it found was no evidence of that. No evidence of that, and that this myth that children are motivated is flawed. It's premised on the assumption that children are not motivated to get a high school diploma. I mean, just think about that. Here you are, a 10th grader, and what we know is that being in the 10th grader strongly correlates to graduating from high school, to being a 12th grader, and then being a 12th grader correlates to getting a diploma. Being in a high school is itself a motivator. Students are assumed to have sufficient opportunity to learn the curriculum. A lot of our teachers in science, and particularly in the science and math areas, they're teaching out of field. Just huge numbers are teaching out of field. A lot of the teachers that are getting laid off right now, we have about 12,000 and counting, because I hear there's going to be some layoffs soon in some of our districts in Texas. Our teachers that have actually been in our schools for many years, they're more expensive, and a lot of them are Latino and African American teachers. Just saw a report by the Texas Federation of Teachers that suggests that the layoffs are disproportionately impacting our teachers of color. And many of those are the ones who can actually teach to the demographics, the new demographics, and a lot of those are in our bilingual education areas. But they're expensive, so they get replaced with Teach for America teachers, because they're less expensive, and but in the long run, of course, more costly if they're in the school system no more than 2 or 3 years. So it becomes a turnstile, revolving kind of workforce that keeps teachers insecure and thusly test focused. What else? There's multiple agendas here. I think I've begun alluding to them. There's the highly driven corporate sector. Pearson, we're a Pearson state in Texas. There's a lot of money in testing. There's also beliefs. There's ideology, right? People have a social Darwinist frame, and they're really about sifting in their minds the better students from everyone else who in this framework does not deserve an opportunity for equality education. These notions of merit that are very deep within our culture. There's a book by Nicholas Lehmann called The Big Test. And what I really like about that book is that it suggests that even if we change policy, there's a deeper issue of culture that we have to deal with, a deeper issue, because we actually, as a country, the way that we have gotten formed, and this has early beginnings that go back to the turn of the century and the incorporation of immigrants into our public school system. Bowles and Gintis write about this in Schooling in Capitalist America. We're a country that's very much interested in merit-based systems, or ostensibly merit-based system, blind to the inequalities that really structure, in the end, the kinds of so-called merit that we supposedly tout. So here, we have this other myth of providing parents with the tools. You've heard this over and over again. Transparency. Well, I don't really know what that means when you need a Ph.D. to understand these systems. This myth also assumes that communities have the capacity to respond, that they even have the capacity. So there's the myth that, well, if you only know, and I mean, you might remember Bush saying, well, if our community just knew how poorly our children were achieving, then they would act. It's never worked that way because I mean, you have communities that absolutely do not have the capacity, that they don't have the skill set, the knowledge base. Maybe they're in a rural area, maybe they're in an inner city poor area. They can't respond. And then what is it to respond? What is it to have capacity to implement an unjust system? These are hugely expensive systems. If you look at Texas, it pays out $90 million annually, and that's just direct costs. But once you compute indirect costs associated with teacher time, administrator time, counselor time, that's a lot of money when you particularly multiply all of that by the number of hours and days and ultimately weeks that are associated with test preps, with benchmarking in preparation for the test, and so on. This is really expensive. There's a whole industry out there that is profiting